Hey book lovers, Jen here with a little bit of a different setup for you. This is my library in my new house. At my old house, a bedroom just acted as my library, and it was pretty dark in there because I lived in a more urban area, so it was on the neighbor side of the house. So there was never really a lot of natural light in there, but now I have my bookshelves in my front living space, so I have a window right in front of me. The lighting might be a little bit different. I didn't pull my studio light in. I'm just hoping that the light from the window, because it's a sunny day today, random sunny day in January out here. We usually don't get much sun during the winter months. So hopefully you don't mind the lighting, but I wanted to do a video about my 2020 books that I read. Some of them I was looking through my list I don't even remember reading. When I was active in Bookstagram, I used to set a goal, I think, of like 50 books a year. One year I got to 65. But then in 2019 I decided to just do, my goal was a book a month, whether it be audiobook or a regular book, like physical book. I don't really do ebooks. I just never have. I mean, I haven't Kindle. I just don't enjoy ebooks for whatever reason. But in 2018 I had changed jobs. Like, I had been a teacher for almost 10 years. And then I started working for a nonprofit in their production department, and now I'm in their marketing department. But just the career change really affected my reading habits. Not only for, you know, I often read before I go to bed, but then as a teacher you had like 2 months off in summer and, you know, things like that. Like, I don't have a chunk of 2 months off at all in my new job, and I don't have enough vacation time to take 2 months off in a row either. But so it really changed my reading habits, and that 50 book goal just did not become realistic when you're working, you know, 40 to 45 hours a week. So I guess this past year I didn't even set a Goodreads goal. I will say that I have started using an app called Storygraph. I do talk about it in a couple of my other videos. I don't have a devoted video to it because I don't really know enough. But it's an alternative to Goodreads. You can even import your books from Goodreads into Storygraph. I know that there's a paid version. I've only used the free version. The interface is much more beautiful and easier to use. You can input triggers and you can mark the severity of the triggers, or I think you can even specify a little bit like what exactly, like they're really specific anyway, but you can go, like, instead of death it would say, you know, like death of an animal, death of a child, and things like that. So that's really nice, in addition to writing your review. So that app is called Storygraph. But I wanted to take a look at my 2020 reads and, you know, see if there's anything I wanted to recommend to you from these. And it just seems so long ago that I read some of these. And some of them I don't even remember, so I don't think I'll have much to say about them. One book, it looks like the very first book that I finished in 2020, even though I started it in December of 2019, is 13 Things Mentally Strong Women Don't Do, Own Your Power, and Channel Your Confidence and Find Your Authentic Voice for a Life of Meaning and Joy by Amy Morin. I'm pretty sure I listened to the audiobook for this, and I don't have Audible or anything, so I check out audiobooks from my library system. Although I've moved counties, I do still have an active library card in the other county I lived in, which was a very large county of a 20+ library system. So that's typically, if like through that library system I'd met Marissa Meyer, Lee Bardugo. So they're so large, and they're in Cleveland, they're around Cleveland, it's the county Cleveland is in. They attract a large audience. So this book, it looks like I rated it 4 stars. I was gonna try and pull up and see my review, but Goodreads is kind of stupid. Like, why is my review not there? Maybe I didn't even write a review. Oh, it looks like I did it. I just gave it 4 stars. Okay, I was gonna say, why isn't my review like at the top where I can find it easily? So I guess I won't even go on about that. If I remember correctly, I think it was a lot of things that are kind of obvious, you know, stuff like women don't put themselves down, you know, and things like that. Like, you don't put yourself down. So I think it was good, but I don't think it was like outstanding. Now, Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson, I do remember reading. Now, that book was interesting for me. So I finished that in end of January in 2020. Because when I first read that book, I think I read like the first chapter and I thought it was really boring and I didn't like it. But then I decided after a very long time to pick it up again. And then all of a sudden I was super into it. It's kind of like the first chapter was really boring and kind of confusing, but then, you know, like they kind of dumped elements of the world too quickly. But after that, I know that I really loved it. I really loved so it's super immersive. It's a standalone. It has to do with like wizards and books having personalities and things like that. And it's really captivating. So I gave that 5 stars. So Sorcery of Thorns, it's by the same author of An Enchantment of Ravens. And so you probably want to check that out. It looks like I listened to a couple other books, The Alter Ego Effect, The Power of Secret Identities to Transform Your Life, and I gave that 4 stars by Todd Herman. And I do kind of remember that it's kind of like, it delves deeper into how you take on different roles, essentially, right? So like, I don't have kids, so it's kind of hard to say, but the role being the CEO of a company is different than the persona you take on when you are at home with your wife and kids. So it really delves deeper into the alter egos about, you know, Superman was Clark Kent, and that's really the only one I can remember off the top of my head for whatever reason. But about how these alter egos can help us embody different personas to help us accomplish goals, basically. I think I heard an interview on a podcast, and then I went to look into it more. The cover has a pair of glasses on it, and that's kind of like the Clark Kent thing, but if I remember correctly, Todd Herman was saying how you need like a trigger object that alters or like signals to your mind that it's time for you to take on this certain persona. Or the opposite of it, right? Like maybe when a police officer comes home, he takes off his badge because he's going into the role of dad or husband or whatever, or vice versa, wife or mother, if it's a woman. But so basically you need like a trigger, like whether it's putting on a pair of glasses, even if they're not prescription glasses, you know, putting on a ring, or having some object that triggers your mind to know that you are going into a different persona. Maybe for a woman, if you are in a male-dominated field, it's putting on some, you know, killer high heels that signal to you that it's time, you know, you're not the soft, nurturing mother right now. You need to go to the office and kill it. So that's actually a really interesting book. There's a little psychology in there. Another book that I listened to on audio was The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. I gave that 4 stars. I finished that in February. That is a very business-oriented book. I can't remember all the details, but I do remember like sending quotes of it to coworkers and things like that. It's kind of like how you're looking, it's called The Infinite Game. So basically it's how you're looking at the long game, the long term. It talks a lot about, one of the things that I remember that happened to stand out is that it talks about like keeping your employees for the long term and making your employees and investing in your employees, not only so that they perform, but so that they feel safe. And when you feel safe in the workplace, you're more likely to perform. Whereas if you're constantly worried about budgets and things, and if you're going to get the axe any second now because your company has been really unpredictable with those things, then it's actually going to affect your performance. So if you are in business, or if you are the CEO, or maybe you're the president of a company, I would suggest checking out The Infinite Game, because maybe it would give you a different perspective from your employee side, especially if you've been in upper management for a really long time. Another book I gave 5 stars was The Hand on the Wall by Maureen Johnson. I don't remember if that was the conclusion to the Truly Devious series. I love that entire series of Truly Devious. I believe that it was, because I think the second book is something like something on the Step is the second book. I don't know why I can't remember the name. The Vanishing Stair is the second book. And fun fact, a new book is coming out in June. Even though the original mystery ended in The Hand on the Wall, The Box in the Woods is going to be coming out this June, so that's pretty exciting. But The Hand on the Wall is the 3rd book in the Truly Devious series by Maureen Johnson. This series reminded me of how much I love YA, and especially YA, well, I should say YA mystery, because it was super fun. It was like reading a modern day Agatha Christie. So when I was in middle school, I really liked Agatha Christie, and I haven't really read any of her books since. But I mean, it was kind of required reading, and I read like And Then There Were None, and then that led me to read a bunch of her other books. But if you like mystery, and I won't even say YA mystery, but if you like mystery, and not super gory because there's nothing crazy, but there are a lot of like red herrings and things like that in this series, so you definitely want to check out the Truly Devious series. And I'm super excited that another book is coming. I think it's supposed to be like same characters but maybe a different mystery, I guess, so that's super exciting. By Jen Sincero, I think I listened to the audio of this. It was You Are a Badass Every Day, How to Keep Your Motivation Strong, Your Vibe High, and Your Quest for Transformation Unstoppable. I think I've read a couple other Jen Sincero books, and I think I gave it 3 stars because it didn't really tell me anything else from the self-help world that I kind of didn't already know. I've been working on my spirituality, my self-help, and my personal growth for 5 to 8 years now. I don't remember when exactly I started. I know I was still teaching when I started. I just can't remember at what job. So at least since 2014, which was my last teaching job. So it's now early 2021. So it's been at least 6 years I've been working on my personal growth. So for me, there wasn't anything earth-shattering or like crazy new in there. But if you are new to self-help and improving your self-esteem and personal growth, then maybe you would find some details in there that are helpful. It looks like I remember listening to this. I listened to Next Level Basic, the definitive Basic Bitch Handbook by Stacy Schroeder, or is it Stassi Schroeder, I guess. I wasn't even familiar from whatever show she's on, Vander something rules. Like, I don't watch like TV shows like that. I'm more into like History Channel, Travel Channel, and Discovery and things like that. But I remember it made me laugh, but it wasn't like crazy anything. It's not incredibly memorable. So I think I gave it 3 stars because of that. Big Magic, Creative Living Beyond Fear by Elizabeth Gilbert. I gave that 4 stars. Nothing in particular stands out. I think it was kind of like about living your true self, and you know, part of being creative is failure. You know, there are lots of inventors and other artists, including J.K. Rowling, who failed numerous times before they found success, and you shouldn't let that hold you back. So nothing outstanding that I can remember off the top of my head, but 4 stars means that I enjoyed it. I don't think I read that. I bet you I listened to that as well. How to Stop Feeling Like Shit by Andrea Owen. I gave 3 stars. I remember nothing about that book. So 3 stars for me is that it's average. I'd be really hard pressed to give a book 2 stars. Like, I'd rather DNF than give a book 2 stars. In April, I finished Stain by A.G. Howard, and I gave that 5 stars. Looks like it took me about from February to April to read it. Now that is a beast book, and I have a review for that book on this channel. I think I have a review for The Hand on the Wall too if you want like more detail. I don't really do book reviews for the nonfiction I read. It's more for the fiction. There's also Sorcery of Thorns on this channel as well. But Stain is amazing. Like, if you like classic fairy tales, it's a little slow paced, but then it really picks up, and it's so good. It is so, yeah. If you like classic fairy tales and magic and like atmospheric books, you should check out Stain. Like I said, you have to give it a chance. It's a little slow in the beginning, but it's really, really good. It's really long. It's the only book I've ever read by A.G. Howard, but I do have her like her alternate version of Wonderland books, Splintered. I have all of those, and I just haven't read them yet, but I really enjoyed Stain, and the cover is gorgeous. Another audiobook I listened to, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, A Counterintuitive Approach to Living a Good Life. I gave it 4 stars. I know this book has been around for a while, and I think I watched some podcasts where Mark Manson was interviewed. I don't remember anything particular off the top of my head about it, but offhand I'll just say I really like the saying of like, stay on your own yoga mat, and I think people need to hear that now more than ever. Your journey is not my journey, and your journey is not my responsibility. Don't make it so. And that's all I'm gonna say about that. House of Salt and Sorrows by Erin A. Craig. Super great. I gave it 4 stars. I think maybe because I thought the ending was a cop-out. It's hard to say. For me, 5 stars is like you know, a book that moves me deeply in some way. In House of Salt and Sorrows, it's supposed to be like a retelling of, I think, 12 Dancing Princesses or some fairy tale I am not familiar with, but it's very atmospheric, and it's fun. But like I said, I thought the ending was kind of a cop-out, so that's probably why I only gave it 4 stars. I did read that as part of a read-along, and I'm pretty certain I have a review for it on this channel if you'd like to have a review that's closer to when I read it, which I finished it in mid-April, so I probably reviewed it within a week or two after actually reading it. Signs: The Secret Language of the Universe by Laura Lynn Jackson, I gave 5 stars, and I believe that this book was a book that, actually I think I listened to the audio of this as well, but I believe it's like first person accounts of signs from spirit, essentially, and I love any kind of book about that. I love books about past lives. I love books about near-death experiences. I love books about alternate realities, and I think there's so much about the universe that we just don't know. And one of my really good friends has been struggling as she's experienced more and more loss with not being certain that there's anything after this life. And not only do I think that's a really depressing point of view, my dad does like think that as well, but he is at terms with it. Like, it doesn't depress him. He just like kind of seems like he doesn't care one way or the other. But my mom and I share the belief that there are things that we just cannot understand, and I think that this universe is so vast and we are so minute in comparison that it's almost silly to think that, I mean, we're still discovering animals that we didn't even know existed after how many years, and civilizations that we're like, oh, we thought they were using like banging rocks together, but they were doing way other things and had made like, you know, their version of advanced tools, and it's not what we thought. And so I think it's almost conceited to think that we can even begin to understand all that there is. Like, we are nothing, but I find comfort in the fact that we're nothing, and I find comfort in the fact that there is something so much better and more, whether that's like cosmic consciousness or what, because let's be real, like if 2020 taught us anything, it's that this world is crazy depressing. This is fun. Adulthood is a Myth by Sarah Anderson, I gave 5 stars. That is a group of cartoons. She's a cartoonist, like comic strip style cartoons, and her character, which is herself, cracks me up because so many times I'm like, yeah, that's me. So if you're looking for something with a bit of cynicism, snarkiness, calling out some insecurities, any cartoons by Sarah Anderson is really worth a look. In May, I finished Days of Blood and Starlight, which is the second book in the, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on it, Daughter of Smoke and Bone series. I don't know why I blanked on that. I gave it 3 stars. It took me from August of 2019 to May of 2020 to finally buckle down and read it. I didn't really like it. Daughter of Smoke and Bone was so good, and I think Days of Blood and Starlight was just like more dark, which is fine. You know, like I love Harry Potter, and when it starts getting dark is actually when I started to enjoy the series even more. But I don't like that Akiva and I can't even think of what the girl's name is. Karou, they were apart so much that like it kind of made me lose interest, and I didn't like it, and she was like questioning a lot about their relationship. I think I have a review for that on this channel as well. But you know, I haven't read the 3rd book yet, and that's, I mean, if the 2nd book had been better, I probably would have jumped into the 3rd book right away, but it's still sitting like on my nightstand. Another book that I listened to is by a Cleveland Clinic doctor, and I live around Cleveland, so I'm always interested to hear what doctors out of the Cleveland Clinic have to say. Food Fix: How to Save Our Health, Our Economy, Our Communities, and Our Planet One Bite at a Time. And I really like this book because I don't think there is not a one-size-fits-all approach, in my opinion. You can't say like we all need to be meat eaters, or we all need to be keto or whatever, or paleo, or you can't say we all need to be vegan or vegetarian. Like, your constitution is not the same as the Journey, saying your constitution is not the same as mine. All these supposedly healthful foods like Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, broccoli, kale to some extent, they tear up my digestion. They cause me to actually cramp and be ill and in pain. but these are health foods. I'm also allergic to tree nuts, which what I liked about this book is, one, he says you can't have a one-size-fits-all approach, but also two, that a big problem is like factory farming and how we need to replenish nourishment back into the land. And I think do more like not huge industrial farming. It needs to be like smaller scale community farming. And I wish and I hope that maybe within this age of Aquarius, that I know there's debate about when it actually started, but whatever. I'm going with after the conjunction that happened in December. But I think that maybe we can get back to more localized goods and services. And I think that would do wonders for our society. But that's just my opinion. Astrophysics for People in a Hurry by Neil deGrasse Tyson, I gave 5 stars. So that is super sciencey. And I started it in October of 2018 and I didn't finish until June. And the only reason I finished, even though the book is like this big, is because I started listening to it on audiobook so I could get it done, because it's really dense. Like astrophysics, like even if you dumb it down, is it really that like dumbed down? I think not. But I love Neil deGrasse Tyson, so well, most of the time. Some of the things I disagree with him about, like life is not just science. There's an element of spirituality to life, in my opinion, and I don't think he necessarily agrees with that. Well Met by Jen DeLuca, I gave 4 stars. That is super cute. I have the other book, the second book on my nightstand, and by second, I just mean it's not like a sequel necessarily. It just follows one of the characters from that book in a new book. And Well Met has to do with a girl who gets like suckered into doing, I think she's like in her early 20s maybe, she gets suckered into doing like a Renaissance fair, and then the guy who kind of like orchestrates the Renaissance fair, he's kind of like moody, and his name is Simon, and you know, they kind of like start to like each other, but they're super different, and it has to do with like how you think, you make assumptions about someone but you really don't know. So it's like contemporary romance, which I almost never read, and I don't think I did a review for this on this channel. Maybe I did, but I don't remember doing one. But it's super cute and lighthearted, so if you need something that's a little lighter, I highly recommend that book. Let's see. This I gave 5 stars. Don't really remember too much about it, actually. I believe I listened to it on audiobook. The Year of Less, How I Stopped Shopping, Gave Away My Belongings, and Discovered Life is Worth More Than Anything You Can Buy in a Store by Kate Flanders. I think that's a book about minimalism. As you can see from my bookshelves behind me, I am not a minimalist, but I also, my shelves are pretty like cluttered or decorated, but I don't really like clutter. I do like a certain element of negative space in some areas. My shelves are not one of them, because I like my shelves to be fun, and I have things that remind me of books, and I have them separated by like genre. So like all my Harry Potter stuff is over there, and I don't know, but I do think it's interesting to, you know, go through things and focus on other things. And changing jobs taught me anything. You know, when you live in a paycheck to paycheck situation, that you really think about what you're buying. Does it bring you joy, or do you need it, or do you want it? I would say if it can fit 2 of those 3, like I would say if it brings you joy and you need it, like that's extra. There are some things, and my bookshelves are the perfect example, especially like I have some Funkos on my shelves. Is that something that brings me joy, at least for now? And when it doesn't anymore, I'm either going to donate them or sell them on eBay or whatever when that time comes. But I think it's worth really focusing on what you have around you, and not even necessarily how much, but so I think I listened to that on audiobook. Another audiobook I listened to is Open Book by Jessica Simpson. I really liked it. I gave it 5 stars. I do find her annoying, which, so it's even extra interesting that I gave it 5 stars. But the things she said totally resonated with me. Some of the experiences she talked about, and you realize really the way the book was written, and even the audio, was almost like, it was like sitting down with one of like my girlfriends or something and talking to them, but she's like the coolest girlfriend you have. Like that's what it was like listening to, and I really liked it. I thought she was really candid about a lot of things. One of my favorite authors wrote a book called Beach Read, which usually she writes more metaphysical YA. This time Beach Read is a contemporary like romance for adults, women fiction. It was cute, it was deep, I cried. I don't know what I didn't like that I gave it 4 stars. I guess it just didn't move me, you know, one way or the other. But basically, like, this girl is dealing with the death of her father, and he leaves her, like, his beach house, and she finds out he had been having an affair. And then she is an author, and a guy is an author who lives in the beach house next door, and they happen to, like, know each other from, like, undergrad or grad school or something. And it's about, like, their own issues and the friendship that they have, and about their different writing styles and things like that. So it's not really, I mean, there's some funny scenes, but I definitely wouldn't say it's like a light read. Becoming Bulletproof, Protect Yourself, Read People, Influence Situations, and Live Fearlessly by Evie Pompopoulos. Hopefully I said her name right. She is Greek. She is on Women of Impact podcast, which is by Lisa Bilyeu, I believe is their last name. Tom and Lisa Bilyeu. And she's interviewed her numerous times, and I really liked Evie's presence and her confidence. She's a former FBI agent from Clinton era, from Clinton era on, or from previous Bush on. Now, I can't even recall off the top of my head which era she started in, but she talks about some of her experiences. The book opens with 9/11, so that can be super triggering. I did listen to it on audiobook. I had to take a break because it had a wait list, and I didn't get it done in time, so then I had to wait so I could, like, get added to the list and then check it out again. But that's definitely worth a listen. It's about her stories, but it's also, and again, about, like, thinking you know things about people when you really don't, but also about, you know, how to have confidence and how to read people and how to connect with people. You know, to get a confession out of, say, like a serial killer, that takes a certain type of connection to that person, and she kind of talks about the psychology of those things. Oops. Oh, and then the last book I read, I didn't realize I was at the end already. I was ready to keep going. I finished in early November A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. I'm actually still reading the second one, and I always get the title wrong. I always call it A Shade of Night, but I think it's called A Shadow of Night. I'm almost done with the second book, and I gave it the first book 4 stars, and I actually really like this series. It's kind of funny. It was very much like Sorcery of Thorns, where I started to read it and didn't really like it, and I put it down, and I didn't. Oh, so it even says in here I started reading it in July of 2015. So I just picked it up again in 2020, and I really like it. So it's like witches, vampires, and demons, and in the modern day, and the main character, Diana, is like a historian, but she likes alchemy and focuses on alchemy and stuff. And she meets this guy after she pulls a manuscript. She's a witch. She knows she's a witch, but she doesn't really know how to, like, use her magic, and her parents were witches and they died. Mysteriously, they were murdered. So she is even more hesitant to use her magic, but it's almost like her, kind of like Twilight, right? Like, the vampire in her are, like, faded in a way, but it's written for adults. It's way more interesting because there's a lot more science and history that is within this, and they really go into, like, the vampire's name is Matthew, and they really go into, like, his past lives and things like that. And Diana starts realizing all these things about her powers, and she's a time spinner, which means she can travel through time. And there's a little bit of info dumping throughout, but by the second book, I don't really either. I'm not noticing the info dumping, or she's not doing it as much. But it's super immersive. It actually is making me want to read Harry Potter after I finish it. So it's a trilogy with a, like, 4th companion book. I do know that it was made into, I think, a series for Netflix. But yeah, so I'm really enjoying that. I gave the first book 4 stars, mainly because of the info dumping, and sometimes Diana can be kind of stubborn and annoying, but she's not annoying enough to, like, turn me off from reading it. Like, I think she's probably annoying to the level that I think I'm annoying. So maybe that's why I'm more compassionate about it. So yeah, I don't know how many books that was. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So I read 23 books in 2020. That's not too bad. That's almost double my goal of 1 book a month. I did set the same goal for 2021. And like I said, right now I am reading A Shadow of Night, which is the second book in A Discovery of Witches, which is also called the All Souls trilogy. So I will be probably finishing that probably this month because it's only early January right now. Overall, I think that my reading in 2020 was a combination of, you know, spiritual self-help, primarily in audiobook form, and I threw in some light books, which didn't we all need some lightness in 2020, for, you know, romantic contemporary, which is way outside my comfort zone. I usually don't read that genre at all. I did in my early 20s, and let's just be honest, that was a really long time ago. And I was more, you know, joie de vivre at that time before, you know, I was still pretty young. So that was kind of fun. I do plan on reading like Well Played. I think I might reread Harry Potter. So I don't know if I'm going to do, maybe I'll do a video series about that. Thumbs up if you'd like, or comment below if you'd like to see a like Harry Potter reread reactions. So I read Harry Potter for the first time starting in actually grad school. The first 5 books were in my young adult lit class. I finished them, I think in grad school maybe, or in like my first year teaching, and then I didn't reread them for a long time, and then maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I thought it was sooner, but I actually think it was like 4 or 5 years ago, I reread them again, and even my favorite book changed. It went from being Prisoner of Azkaban to being Order of the Phoenix. So that was kind of interesting. So I'm curious to see. I think Order of the Phoenix is probably still going to stay my favorite book, but I really want to read them because I'm looking for something immersive, but I'm also looking for, my dad is getting into Harry Potter. He'll watch the movies when he visits and if they're on with me. But he asks me so many questions, and he did read the first book, but I kept trying to explain to him that they kind of start out as middle grade, which doesn't really interest him, and then they get into like more YA, and that's when it gets dark and interesting. I have convinced him to read Hunger Games in the past. He didn't like it. And I convinced him to read Divergent in the past. Like, Hunger Games he thought was okay. Divergent he really didn't like, and he thought the ending was a total cop-out, which it was. So I don't know if I've kind of like influenced his YA. He does read my books that I write, so, and I know he likes them, but he might be biased. But yeah, so if you'd be interested in some like, you know, rereading Harry Potter reaction videos, let me know. Hit subscribe. I post pretty sporadically. I don't know if I'm going to get back into once a week. That's what I used to. I used to do 1 or 2 times a week, and then I used to do like, I think I took months off, and you know, I'm trying to get back into a groove with this. I might start incorporating other things, you know, that don't have to necessarily do with writing, but I'm not completely sure yet. I do really like DIYs and crafting and things like that. So I don't know if I want to start getting into like hauls and crafting and books and writing and kind of take more of a lifestyle approach with this channel. I'm still undecided on that. So for now, it's just going to be books and writing until I can make a decision. I did do something different in my last video. It's an ASMR style walkthrough of the Mina Lima edition of Harry Potter, and in the US we call it the Sorcerer's Stone. There's a lot of like pop-up elements and things like that, but I don't talk at all in that video, and you know, I just thought it would be fun. I was going to look through it myself, and I was like, why don't I record a video of, you know, so you were looking through it with me for the first time as well. So that was the last video that I posted, so be sure to check that out and give it a like. Hit that subscribe button, and let me know what other book reviews or other things you might like to see on this channel. In the meanwhile, happy reading and happy writing.